Hey guys, I'm learning TFT. In this video, we're going to go through the biggest statistical impact on the changes between 1420 and 1421. In this video, I'm going to go through both just briefly touching on the high level trends here, and then I'm going to go through a statistical breakdown I broke down 1421, 1420 and the differences in all these stats, as well as I copied over the patch impacts on the nerfs and buffs for each of these comps and what conditions these comps are playable in. So if we just look at the high level first, you'll see that Honey got buffed, Mages got nerfed here, Portal or the Scholar board got nerfed, Multis got buffed, and yeah, so 7 multi, Honey got buffed, Frost got buffed, Mage nerf, and that's like kind of high level trends. So I'm going to go through a breakdown here, and how I did this was I filtered Masters Plus, and the color coding indicates whether the change was good or bad, with green being good and red being not so good. So this column kind of shows the high level biggest impact on AVP as well as win rate here. So you'll see that Lilia got a lot better. Zig's Zap Attack got a lot better. So that's Honey here because of the Honey buffs. This Lilia now is played with the RE board. That's the original RE board. This one here from, I forget, like, what was that, the second patch of this set that everyone was playing that RE board, which also affected Witchy Wallop, is basically that same board. And then RE rerolls up here. So all of those got big AVP bumps because of the RE buff. What else got a big buff? 7 Frost. So Swain had a mana buff. Frost got buffed. I didn't put that here. Frost AD/AP buff. And Mogul's Mail buff is actually good on a Swain 3 if you're able to get there. Zig's Blitz reroll with Honey got buffed. This one's kind of separate from the Zap Attack just from a stat standpoint, but the comp is the same. Looks like this one right here. And then what else got big buffs? Frost got buffed, Ari. Sweet Tooth from Honey got buffed, and then 5 and 7 Eldritch got buffed, Neela got a buff, and I forget if Syndra got a buff too. Though this is still kind of conditional on School Mascot and Eldritch. I also color coded the left side here. The green ones are kind of non-conditional. If you can hit the rerolls ahead of tempo, then you should be in a good spot, even if you don't have perfect augment or items. Whereas the white ones, there's usually conditions for you to be able to get there. Eldritch is like, 7 Eldritch is like kind of on the fence here, because you can get there if you're lucky and hit that early Briar, but it's kind of like 8 Portal, where it's just not going to be as good even if you get to that 8 Portal or 7 Eldritch without the emblem, because you're playing too many bad units. Deja Vu Galio, I don't believe any Vanguards really got buffs, but this one probably just got better because like everything else, all of the other top comps got nerfed. So if this is untouched, it just gets a little bit better. This got better because of Ari. 6 Sugar, Zonya AP nerf didn't really affect that much. This is probably also that 6 Sugar, you just need time for this comp to work well. And if you tempo and are able to get a lot of sugar stacks, then you're going to be able to have a really high win rate and cap out. And so if all of the other top tier comps got nerfed, then this one will improve in placement. 8 Bastion Flex, this is really uncommon. You more so play towards this on Trainer Golem or Wandering Trainer if you have that extra emblem, because you need to be able to fit in like your actual carries. So I think that covers all the really positive delta ones. So I'll talk about the negative deltas, starting with the biggest negative. So that's Hui reroll. So I'll pull that one up for your reference. So that one's this Vanguard Hui reroll, which was gaining popularity towards the end of the last patch. And the problem with this comp now is that Molten Caramel was nerfed, or sorry, where is that? Rumble was nerfed, Bard damage was nerfed, and the Arcana TK HP was nerfed. And a big part of this comp success was that it had 2, 4, 6, 7 traits active, and that would give a lot more HP to this comp. So I believe they kind of nerfed that HP for Tom Kench, primarily trying to target Varus, but that really knocked this one down a lot. So if you're playing Hui reroll, it's much better to play the Ezreal and Hui version now, since that's not as reliant on Arcana. That's this one, but usually you won't have 6 Blaster in right away. I believe if you're on level 7, yeah, you just have 4 Blaster, 4 Vanguard. And they buffed 4 Blaster as well. They buffed Tristana, who you'll kind of use in the interim until you get the Smolder. So if you're playing around Hui or Blasters, you probably avoid this Vanguard version. And now you're playing towards Ezreal and Hui. Though to play this one, you need a lot of gold, which is why all that shimmers is actually really good, since you can collect a lot of gold, and the gold collector is extremely good on Ezreal. So that's this one. Molten Caramel Rumble mana was nerfed. Mage was nerfed in a lot of different ways. Let me see. So 7 Mage AP was nerfed. Combat Caster was nerfed. Learning to Spell was nerfed. Mogul's Mail HP buff. So Mogul's Mail is actually quite good on an early Vex, especially if you have tank items to start. That can really give you a lot of gold to be able to hit all of your units. And Zhonya's was nerfed. So Mage was just hit hard across the board, but it's still averaging a 4.4 and a high play rate. So it's still a strong comp with a high cap out, that the win rate went down from 14% to 11% because of this 7 Mage AP nerf. It just doesn't cap out as high. So you really need to make sure that you're hitting ahead of tempo and capping out with the scaling for Veigar in order for this to work. And also, given that Xerath Arcana buff, so your late game cap out should really be playing around TK and Xerath with Veigar, buying a ton of charms. That's how you're gonna win with with Mage now. Let's see, what else got big nerfs? Okay, so Corrupt Vampiric Scepter was removed, but Warwick himself was buffed, and he's still playable with these items or anger issues. So Radiant Rage Blade, Wits End, Rapid Fire Cannon Mittens, Infinity Force, and Radiant Titans, you can still play Warwick. Or I suspect you can still play Warwick without any of these and still have a pretty solid top 4 rate. So this is like kind of middle condition. What else had a big drop? Scholar Rise. So there was a 6 Scholar nerf, Healing nerf, Bard nerf, Little Buddies nerf, Zhonya's nerf, Combat Caster nerf. So Rise was nerfed across the board a decent amount. He still has a high pick rate and 4.5 with that pick rate. So he's still going to be like one of your default comps. He's just not going to be as consistent. Kalista was also nerfed in a million different ways. 2 Chrono Healing nerf, which makes a big difference in Rakan being able to stay up. Tristana AD buff actually helps the early mid game preserve HP. Katarina damage buff, same thing. So like it's a little bit easier to get to Kalista while preserving HP with these two. But Rakan's shield was nerfed. Combat caster, which is one of the best Kalista augments, was nerfed. Same thing with little buddies and royal guard. So many of Kalista's best augments were nerfed. But the win rate here is still really high, 14%. And as far as non-conditional comps go, this and Arcana Varus pretty much have, and Shapeshifter Dragon, but that's more of a fast 9 approach. Like Kalista will still cap out usually higher than Scholar Rise. This one, not really that common. And then also Jinx Wukong reroll improved in AVP. I suspect this is, even though, so Jinx had an AD buff, but many of her augments were nerfed. And Mogul's Mail with the HP buff is actually really good on Wukong as well, similar to Vex. Just gives you, like, the item is tailor-made for Wukong and Vex. It's kind of like a stone plate that generates HP and gold for you. So Jinx, because all the other... Jinx was kind of already playable without augment specific stuff, and with the nerfs to all of the other top fast 8 comps, this is a lot more viable and just gonna be a lot more consistent. So Jinx, from a pure like, if your goal is to climb and have a high AVP consistency, Jinx Wukong is very good. Obviously, if you're contested, that's going to be hard, but you can always pivot between, you slam that early Rage Blade and you can kind of pivot between Jinx, you can go towards Kalista, and then if you happen to high roll a Smolder on 8, then you can still play Shapeshifter Dragons. What else was a big, Portal Rise, not much of a change. Witchcraft Rise, also very good. So Rise is still going to have a lot of high cap out potential with either Witchcraft Rise or Portal Rise instead of Scholar Rise, but you have to be able to hit those emblems for those to work. So this hopefully gives you a high level understanding of what the meta is right now. Keep in mind that this is off of less than 12 hours of data in NA, so this will likely change. Some hypotheses on what might evolve further is, I suspect Eldritch hasn't been played around much, and this is kind of conditional on hitting these, but could see some more play, especially if you can play around like an early Syndra Neela mid game, and you can also flex on reroll on that. Plus, on certain portals, I'm not exactly sure which portal is better, but Beggars Can Be Choosers can allow you to be able to try to hit school mascot, especially. That's where you're going to get the biggest cap out. Also, what was that portal where you get the high cost unit of that of your most active trait is particularly good for this one, and kind of makes it more of an unconditional play since you're able to hit that Briar a lot earlier. So yeah, I think right now from a pure meta standpoint, these are going to be your most commonly played ones. So Jinx, Mage, Rise, and Kalista. And then Shapeshifter Dragons, people will probably still play this, but because the play rate's high, but this is going to be a lot more of a first or 8th strategy. You see the top 4 rate here is much lower. And Preserver Warriors, this one, same thing with Shapeshifter Dragons. This one, your top 4 rate is going to be extremely low. You basically need to hit everything and go 9 and cap out with your 5 cost. So this is really a first or 8th strategy as well. but I suspect we'll see a lot more zap attack, and so the honey reroll and the RE rerolls, those are the ones that from last patch were not really playable, and we should see a lot more of those in this meta, which makes tears and rods, like being able to play AP gives you another line, whereas before it was primarily Mage and Rise from an AP standpoint, but now you can introduce Ziggs and Ari back into the meta. So from an AP standpoint, you just have a lot more flexibility, and then from an AD standpoint, you have Jinx, Kalista, and dragons and hunters. So I suspect the meta is just going to be a lot more diverse. You have a lot more options. There are a lot more conditions that have very high AVPs here that weren't as strong. Like 7 Frost wasn't as strong before. Ziggs wasn't really an option, and Eldritch wasn't really that much of an option, though it was playable. But now you have this 7 Frost and 7 Eldritch as viable verticals. You have a lot more of these hero augments, and of course you have all of your kind of main fast 8 comps. So as we move towards the end of the set, usually the balance team does a good job of just making sure everything becomes playable, and so now the skill expression on what line you're deciding to take is going to be a lot higher. I hope you found this video useful. If you have thoughts, comments, analysis that you'd like to add, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.